Fortnite is not dying. Instead, Fortnite is exposing how exhausting and expensive the live service empire model really is. Fortnite still sits on the throne. Yet, Epic's own memo admitted engagement slipped during 2025, while spending outrun revenue. That is a hilarious sentence for a game that once behaved like it owned adolescence itself. Epic built the biggest live service carnival on Earth, then discovered eternity comes with payroll, server costs, licensing bills, and executives sweating through expensive shirts. March turned the public story from conquest into upkeep. Nothing ages a digital empire faster than sounding like a casino manager, counting chips after sunrise. Sure, that is not a tombstone, but it is the kind of language that makes a forever game sound like a very tired landlord. A collapse would at least be dramatic. Fatigue just arrives, wearing management jargon and carrying a knife made of budget cuts. Meanwhile, players keep asking whether Fortnite is dying, when the sharper question is why burnout keeps getting mistaken for death in the first place. Everybody watched seasons passes, quests and events turn into a grind. Resets, shops and countdowns made a drop-in session feel like a clock-in before the app gets mad. Attendance became the actual product years ago. That is a dirty little trick, because no one downloads a hobby hoping it comes with time card energy. Reddit notices that mood, even when the posts sound like they were typed mid-argument, in a gas station parking lot. Sooner or later, a game demanding daily check-ins stops feeling like play. It starts feeling like a supervisor asking about missed optional meetings. Basically, the genre sold players a playground, added fireworks, and stapled crossover mascots to every surface. Then, it quietly converted the whole place into shift work. Epic's answer to thinning excitement was the standard, bloated platform solution. They added more things, more tabs, and more systems, hoping abundance impersonates purpose. Collabs kept dropping like branded confetti from a helicopter. That is terrific if your creative philosophy begins and ends with another celebrity holding a rifle. Cosmetics multiplied, menus thickened, and side modes spread. The interface started looking like a shopping mall had swallowed a launcher and learned to blink. Meaning does not magically appear, because a spreadsheet says there are 17 progression tracks, and a licensed icon standing near the buy button. Apparently, even Tim Sweeney admitted Epic struggled to deliver consistent magic every season. That is executive code for we kept yelling louder and the spark kept leaving. Ballistic got cut after Epic said some modes failed to attract and retain a large audience. This is refreshingly blunt from a company fluent in trailer voice. Festival Battle Stage also got shown the door, proving once again that ideas do not become stronger merely because Fortnite blends them with neon. Rocket Racing, once sold as a bright slice of the future, now reads like a limited-time burger. It had a flashy reveal, brief excitement, and then a quiet disappearance. Turns out, the future of Fortnite expires fast, when players treat your grand expansion like background seasoning, rather than a habit worth protecting. Obviously, the item shop kept humming. The item shop is not content, it is a receipt generator, with better lighting and licensed nostalgia. Skins monetize attachment beautifully, but another superhero, anime star, or meme mascot cannot fix stale play beneath expensive wrapping paper. Prices shifted again in 2026, through V-Bucks, crew, and Battle Pass changes. This means Epic adjusted not just your time, but your arithmetic. Math is where fatigue stops pretending. Stress inside the company eventually lands in your wallet, as tiny changes dressed up like harmless maintenance. Retail therapy with a shotgun remains retail therapy, regardless of how many dances, gliders, and wraps the storefront uses as camouflage. Worse, Fortnite did not merely become successful, it became an executive religion. It was the miracle slide deck that convinced leadership everywhere they could capture spare human life. Executives saw the king and learned the wrong lesson. This is impressive, because the correct lesson was already difficult enough, without adding delusion. Studios copied the shell instead of the circumstances. They acted like endless monetized engagement was the secret, rather than timing, luck, and ruthless iteration. Imitation keeps producing these tiny funerals because publishers saw a crown and decided the hard part was just remembering where to buy gold paint. Reality says otherwise. One person does not get 100 forever games, unless someone also invents 100 extra evenings every week. Humans still need sleep, work, school, and meals. We need family errands and occasional hours where a menu is not barking premium chores before midnight. Research keeps reaching the same ugly conclusion. Players concentrate time into fewer games, instead of stacking commitments like haunted grocery coupons. Attention is finite. Yet, the industry built infinite engagement loops for a species stubbornly attached to biology and the deeply inconvenient need to rest. Sleep was apparently not included in the business model. This explains why so much strategy sounds drafted by a spreadsheet, which thinks customers are houseplants with credit cards. Ironically, Fortnite's greatest strength became part of the trap. Universal content buckets force every new addition to fight all the old additions for attention. Consumers do not always experience that as generosity. Many experience clutter, friction, and the suspicion that skipping 1 week creates digital paperwork. Lobbies can look busier, and trailers can get louder, yet none of that guarantees the next match feels surprising. Passes multiplied across modes until progression started resembling tax law. Nobody should act stunned when players chose the simpler pleasure of not being managed. Creators were supposed to broaden the platform forever. However, user-made abundance follows the same cruel law as every content flood. Options explode, discovery shrinks, and quality gets buried under the weight of sheer availability. This happens once quantity starts cosplaying as value. History keeps humiliating industries that confuse expansion with resilience. Scale amplifies weaknesses just as efficiently as it amplifies success. Profit looked gigantic from the outside, but the 2026 memo made one fact painfully clear. Glamorous revenue means little when costs keep chewing. There have been enough side experiments and boardroom perfume. The spectacle now reads like a company learning that endless engagement is easier to pitch than sustain. Mobile matters more than the hype crowd likes admitting. Fortnite spent years off iOS after Epic picked a fight with Apple, and they paid accordingly. August 2024 finally brought Fortnite back to iOS in the European Union. This helped restore reach while reminding everyone how long a major lane stayed blocked. May 2025 brought Fortnite back to the US App Store, ending a much longer exile in one of the richest phone ecosystems on Earth. Sweeney later said the legal war cost Epic more than $1 billion. A heroic glow looks weaker when standing beside a bill that obscene. Crusades sound noble until the invoice arrives, the mobile audience has drifted, and your flagship game is still trying to recover routine access. YouTube can smell weakness before investor relations finds deodorant. This is why the platform overflows with doom-posting thumbnails and layoff reactions. Thumbnails are not evidence, but they absolutely reveal what kind of odor the wider culture has started noticing around the game. Denial guards one side of the debate, and the middle is packed with tired players who simply notice strange vibes. Mood matters in a live service. Chatter, ritual, clips, and memes are not decorative extras, they are circulation. Water becomes impossible to ignore once a community starts arguing about whether concern itself is embarrassing. Healthy games generate bragging instead of coping speeches. Ultimately, the problem is not Fortnite alone. The problem is the model that crowned it king, copied its habits, and called that wisdom. Kings can limp for years and still remain kings. None of this means Fortnite vanishes tomorrow or stops being culturally gigantic. However, layoffs, mode shutdowns, and monetization pressure do mean the market leader is showing strain. Blueprints are supposed to help builders. But when the original structure starts coughing, maybe stop photocopying it like scripture and question the architecture. Maybe games do not need to become all-consuming platforms and fashion malls. They do not need to be creator economies and second jobs simultaneously. Still, executives adore the fantasy, because forever games promise recurring revenue and captured habits. Plenty of players cooperated for years. Yet, cooperation is not infinite, novelty decays, and even giants eventually learn the difference between scale and stamina. Fatigue is what happens when a platform solves every wobble with more spectacle, more brands, and more store math. Models requiring endless attention from finite creatures are not visionary. They are greedy, brittle, and doomed to mistake temporary compliance for durable affection. Frankly, if the king of live service now looks tired rather than triumphant, that should be the warning. Analysts may still call the machine healthy. But memo language about slipping engagement and overspending is basically a cough with subtitles. Employees paid the immediate price, which is another classic feature of tech ambition. Executives overshoot, then payroll becomes the emergency brake. Contractors disappeared, budgets tightened, and projects shrank. The people who actually built the circus got handed the cleanup, while the ringmasters explained maturity. Language always gives the game away. Once internal documents stop bragging and start trimming, the mood has already changed. Arithmetic is the villain every forever game eventually meets. Hype can stretch attention only so far before invoices begin voting. Gravity eventually collects on every giant platform. Fortnite is now feeling the bill in real corporate English. Hiding inside the numbers is the game, that taught the industry to chase forever, is now publicly demonstrating why forever is such a stupid business fantasy. There was always one punchline waiting under the glitter. No matter how massive the king gets, the kingdom still has utility bills, quests turned into chores, and chores turned into obligations. Obligations are wonderful, right up until they start feeling visible. Limited time events can create hype. Yet, they can just as easily train audiences to feel permanently behind. Systems pile up because subtraction scares executives. That is how a game turns into an overstuffed closet with a concert stage. Somewhere along the way, forever stopped sounding aspirational and started sounding like a maintenance contract no one read carefully. Remember, exhaustion is just collapse in office clothes. This explains why Fortnite now sounds less immortal and more budget reviewed.